Good evening, Mr. Balraman, you join? Good evening, Mr. Ramesh. Welcome. Hi, sir. Good evening. Welcome. This is Group Captain Vijay Kumar.
Good evening. Lovely to see you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for joining us. And now, before we move forward, we just formally launched the book with all the dignitaries here. Maybe if you have a copy of the book, you can show it on the screen. We'll capture that. It will also become part of our launch in Chennai. Would you like to do that, sir? If you have a copy of the book, you can show it on the screen. And meanwhile, I also request the dignitaries to come on to show the book again, sir.
Okay.
Please, we'll do action replay.
Is the mic live?
Yes, yes.
We are doing this in honor of this great book and the person behind this book, you.
Thank you very much for doing that. I have my copy here behind me, so hopefully you can see that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Ramesh. And before I call upon Mr. Atul to lead the conference, Ramesh, can I have the AV of people? Yeah, Mr. Balram has joined. Good evening, Mr. Balraman. Able to hear me? Mr. Balraman? Good evening, Mr. Balraman. I think you heard.
Good evening, Vijay. Can you hear me?
You have to put on your camera, sir. Otherwise, let me introduce you. Then I will request you to give the opening remarks on this occasion. You all know Mr. Balraman, past president of MMA and former managing director of Pondss India Limited, and is a boardroom advantage offering brand marketing consultancy, coaching, leadership, mentorship, a former MD and CEO of Pondss. And I now request Mr. Balraman to deliver the opening remarks. Mr. Balraman is responsible for instituting this Pondss veteran memorial lecture. Not only that, he is the one person who has been twice the president of Madras Management Association and a great supporter of MMA, and is a great mentor. He's also a guide. So under his dynamic leadership and guidance, we could do so many things in MMA thanks to Mr. Balraman. Over to Mr. Balraman to deliver the opening remarks.
Thank you, Vijay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's of course my privilege and pleasure to introduce the V. Narayanan Memorial Series once again to all of you. V. Narayanan was the Chief Executive and Managing Director of Pondss India Limited, and I worked under him for several years and learned a lot. Mr. Narayanan's strength was not that he was a great manager, but a fantastic leader. When it comes to leadership, Mr. Narayanan typifies what a person ought to be. A leader is one who not only forms a team, but also takes the team to its goal. He makes sure that everybody's strength is identified and encouraged and used well towards achieving the team's common purpose. Mr. Narayanan typified what a good leader should be, and he brought out the best in people. He always looked at the strength and opportunity. He never looked at the weakness of a person. That a person did something wrong or failed in something was not material to him. What was material to him is where a person succeeded. What did he do well that others could not do is what he looked at. Mr. Narayanan is a rare kind of leader. And what we need in business and life are leaders, more and more of them. And so leadership is a very important subject to study, encourage, and support for development. So leadership is the subject, and I'm very, very happy to talk about Mr. Narayanan in that context. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Balraman. I know we are missing you today. I'm quite sure we'll catch up soon with you. And now we all come to the most awaited part of this evening. And Mr. Atul Vora in conversation with Mr. Ramesh Srinivasan. Now, before I call upon distinguished speakers, may I the AV of the distinguished speakers, please.
Mr. Ramesh Srinivasan is a senior partner at McKinsey and Company, specializing in organizational transformation, leadership development, and merger management across high-tech, healthcare, banking, and industrial sectors. Mr. Ramesh is the Dean of McKinsey's Bauer Forum and co-author of The Journey of Leadership. With over 25 years of experience, he has led strategic initiatives balancing performance and cultural transformation. A gold medalist from IIM Ahmedabad and an IIT Madras graduate, Mr. Ramesh is also a trustee of Akanksha and advisor to Teach for India. Is a seasoned leader with over 25 years of experience across Fortune 50 mid-cap and private equity-backed companies in consumer and B2B technology. He has driven growth in global markets, led successful public exits, and built enduring brands. Mr. Atul, as a former regional managing director and CMO at Solida, spearheaded AI-driven digital transformation. He has also held key roles at Majesco, their Outback Road Systems, and Citi. Currently, Mr. Atul advises SaaS firms, teaches global strategy at SMU, and actively engages in community initiatives.
That's a profile of outstanding speakers for this evening. I will now request Mr. Ravi Shankar, our partner, UI, and also founder of Connect to Expert, to formally say a few more words about the speaker and the event this evening. Mr. Ravi Shankar, also a Pondss veteran and is a chartered accountant and his leadership roles in Hindustan Lever, Unilever, London, and passionate about solving complex business issues. Mr. Ravi.
A warm welcome to all of you today evening. I think my job has been made simpler by this audio visual, and I think you have seen two stalwarts on the screen and introduced by MMA. But I thought I would like to personally introduce and say a few more words about them. What I understood from Atul was Ramesh, he is a Chennaiite and he's from IIT Madras, and in the batch of 1988-92. Little more details I would like to give so that you get the flavor of his academic achievements. Thereafter, he moved to IIM Ahmedabad, and he in 92-94 batch, and he excelled there as a gold medalist in the 94 batch. That is a great milestone for him. One of the unique things which I noticed with him is that for the last 30 years, he has not changed a job. And he has been a person with McKinsey. He has grown up from the ranks. And McKinsey has been so lucky to have him for 30 years plus now. So that's to his credit. And we are lucky to have Ramesh today, thanks to Atul. Ramesh heads healthcare and organizational practices. I personally come from consulting background. I know the kind of the person who he must have put in 30 years or so. He must have handled at least 300 to 400 clients in each one of these verticals and domain. So, rich treasure house of knowledge was given in a platter by Atul to us today evening. Thanks, Atul. Now, Atul, both me and Atul joined in the brand room of Pondss, and I was managing a small building brand, but he was the main stalwart in the brand room along with MS Narayanan and a few others. A few of us Pondss veterans present here today, thank you all. And we all have worked together and built the Pondss institution, which is basically a cradle of innovation and also entrepreneurship. Each one of the people who came out of Pondss have managed independent businesses and have gone to a global leader. So that is one of the significant platform provided by Mr. V. Narayanan to all of us. After moving from Pondss, he joined the financial services industry, banking and financial services industry. In fact, I remember that he called me one night. I said, Ravi, I'm going to go to diners. So what? From FMCG to diners. But he made a great career in city, in various countries. Started in Delhi, then went to Hungary as a head of city Hungary, then moved to Greece, all exotic locations. In fact, I personally met him in Hungary in his. And then he moved on to New York. He had a very successful career in financial services industry. So he has got enormous knowledge and strength in banking and financial strength. Then he moved on to IT services. IT services, then he moved to create brands like Majesco and also Dell. He was heading the marketing function there. And so it was a fantastic move from him, from financial services to IT. And from IT, he moved on to software as a service. That is in Solera. Solera is a leading automobile software platform which tracks various automobile health. So that is an interesting challenge. And he transformed that organization, integrated 50 companies into a single holding company and created a very strong brand. So that taken a little time to elaborate what kind of people we are talking today. And thanks to them, I think today we are going to see yet another successful VN Memorial Lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. And before I call upon Mr. Atul to lead the conversation with the distinguished chief guest for this evening, all the viewers watching this program, as usual, if you have a question, today we also have ICT Academy members joined us as a collaborative partner, watching this live from all over India. I think we expect a couple of thousands of them to watch this program. If you have any questions, the number is shared on the screen. You can send the questions. Now, I request Mr. Atul to lead the conversation with our distinguished chief guest for this evening, Mr. Ramesh. Over to Mr. Atul.
Thank you. Do you want me to go to the lectern or here, or wherever the audio is better? I just want to make sure.
Audio will be better from here. Yeah. Just try to.
Yes, from here.
So it's easy for the cameraman.
Okay, perfect. Can you hear me? The audio is good?
Yes.
No, I prefer not to use the mic because I want to. This is a real intimate fireside conversation.
So we need a mic to come here because it's going audio.
I think that may be better.
Yeah, come here. Fine.
So everyone can hear me clearly? Yeah, it's more important to hear Ramesh, but I want to be the one teeing it off and asking him questions. Ramesh, thank you, first of all, for making the time. And I apologize to our viewers. There seems to have been some goof up. Unlike some of our political personalities, I will not pass the buck and say the problem must have been at my end with the time zones. But regardless, we are on here and we are not going to let Ramesh go till we've answered all the questions. And Ramesh, I did read the book cover to cover more than once. It's dog marked and bookmarked. But I want to start by saying the reason I think this is an intimate conversation. I only met Ramesh 6 months ago. We had a lovely coffee, but it was like we were kindred souls meeting. And right at that time, I figured here is a person who belonged to Pondss. I think we need to settle some scores with McKinsey for stealing him away, although by then Pondss had become Levers. So due apologies to all the Levers people. I think some of our mojo was diluted. But Ramesh has obviously the academic brilliance to be part of the Pondss galaxy. And we had many, many gold medalists from IIM Ahmedabad. I was not one of them. But we had many people like Ramesh. But more than that, it's his human traits. And I can't tell you enough to say that I have not met someone as positive, as human-centric as Ramesh. And it didn't take me more than, the hour we spent together and the car ride we had to discover how much we share and how we think alike. But before I get maudlin and go into the human side of it, I want to say also that V. Narayanan, our cherished and dear guru, really belonged to the pages of this book. And if this book were written when he was alive, I have no doubt in my mind that many of the stories, like the stories you talk about Moderna or the stories of Anu Patwardhan, V. Narayanan would have been right there, because I feel like we together need to write a book about things we have witnessed, leadership that we have witnessed. I have so many examples, and I'm going to stop in a moment, of his humility and his confidence, and how the yin and yang work so well together, of his empathy and instilling empathy within all of us, but still empowering us to do what we needed to do. Empathy didn't mean that he was looking over our shoulders. It just meant that he trusted us and let us be. So I think there's a lot that he would have been able to contribute here. But I'm going to close with one thing, and then I'm going to turn to Ramesh. And that was when I think of, and you talk about this, Ramesh, a lot about embedding purpose. He embedded purpose, but the purpose, remember, this was 1979. We were in the middle of life. We were at the time in India's evolution when we frankly didn't have that confidence. This Made in India movement hadn't begun, but he had that. And while we didn't say it in so many words, what it reminds me of is the motto that stands above my daughter's college, which says, for God, for country, and for Yale. In our case, it would have been for God, for India, and for every individual in Pondss, India. And that's what he was. He was a man who led by faith. When Mr. Balraman and I talked yesterday, we were saying he led with hope, and Balram corrected me and said, with faith. And I think that's what it was. So without further ado, Ramesh, I want to ask you to take the mic and talk to us about, first and foremost, why did you write this book? And then we've got a series of questions I want to ask you, but take it away.
Thank you, Atul. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Firstly, again, apologies for any confusion on time zones, etc. I'm glad we're up and running. Very, very excited and very honored to be here. Thank you. The more I hear about Mr. Narayanan, I wish I had known him better. I have heard about him, and just FYI, while I've spent more than 30 years at McKinsey, the only other institution that I did spend a summer at was Hindustan Lever, where I spent a few months, and then, like you said, for good or for worse, chose McKinsey over Hindustan Lever. But I've had a lot of respect both for Pondss growing up in Chennai, and then also Hindustan Lever as I went through a business school and beyond. So very honored to be having this conversation. The idea of this book started about 3 years ago. I'm the dean of our McKinsey's Bauer Forum, and we were getting to a point where we knew we would have more than 500 CEOs who would have gone through the Bauer Forum. Now we've had more than 600, but 3 years ago we could see the trajectory, and we felt like we had a data set from which we could extract learnings and share those learnings with the world. Part of our objective here was to democratize the Bauer Forum itself. We've shared a lot about the process that we use. We've shared the stories of a small set of leaders who've gone through the Bauer Forum, and leaders that we've observed. I've observed over the last 30 years. My colleagues have observed over the last several decades. And we've also extracted a set of what we call micro practices. I'm sure we'll talk about that. And a set of questions that can help leaders on their own journey. And leaders meaning not just CEOs or senior leaders, but really leaders across the whole spectrum who are thinking about leadership. I loved Mr. Balraman's framing already of manager versus leader. He was setting that up in his introductory remarks. And we felt, why not share these ideas on how leaders can invest in their own development, grow, and learn. Mahatma Gandhi had said, live every day like it's your last, and learn every day like you live forever. So it was really that learning orientation that inspired us to write the book and bring the ideas to the world, Atul.
So when and that's fantastic to democratize, what you said, democratize leadership and learning, and I think that's a really great purpose. My question to you though is, what is it about human-centric leadership? And I know it's the whole book that sets it apart, because if anyone is interested and you go to Amazon and type in the word leadership, I did this. There are only about 57,000 and change books or, books basically that come up with a leadership title in them, leadership word in the title. So writing another one is a very brave venture. And kudos to you for doing that and doing it so well and making it to several best-selling lists. But what is it about human-centric leadership that sets it apart from these 57,000 other books?
Yeah, our big idea here is this concept of human-centric leadership, as you said. What we saw is in today's day and age, with all the geopolitics that are constantly changing and changing faster, you have technology that is disrupting at least the business world, but also even beyond that, our day-to-day lives. Climate change is real and here to stay. So in this context, the idea that a leader has answers to all the problems that are happening in the world, we felt is no longer relevant. And so we thought what is important is for a leader to be able to ask questions. On the one hand, a leader still needs to have set a sense of purpose, a vision, a direction that can be useful to the organization. But at the same time, be open to asking the tough questions. What am I not clear about today? Being humble, which is, our chapter 1 is, you're not the smartest person in the room. Be able to assemble, use their sense of purpose to inspire teams and inspire institutions. So our thesis is you cannot walk around today just telling people what to do. You need to come in with a deep sense of your own purpose and use that to inspire teams and inspire institutions. So that's what we are calling inside out leadership. So inside is, and half the book is on the inner journey. What is my purpose? Who am I? What gives me energy? And half the book is on using that clarity to inspire teams and inspire change in the world. And so that's the idea that we wanted to bring to the world. And that's the idea we saw in all these Bauer forums and the 600 leaders that we had the good fortune to observe and watch over the last 15 years, Atul.
So just let's dig into this whole, purpose and inspiration, because this is what we saw in Pondss, as I said, in droves, and Balram referred to it as well. I've got to paint the picture a little bit. I know you were in India at that time, but perhaps not quite, because in the sense you were a younger, student in the years when cosmetics was deemed to be a luxury good, heavily taxed. We had growth objectives, but frankly, the way to grow was not very clear. And Mr. Narayanan had this uncanny ability to look beyond, look around corners and think about a world where India and Indians and Pondss could be hugely successful. And he, as I said, instilled empathy in us, and I'll talk a little bit about maybe it's a good point to have a standard, the standard operating procedure was when we went out to meet a salesperson and we came back, if we ran into you in the hallways, the first question would be, how is so-and-so's son doing now? So if you hadn't picked that up when you went, to this on the sales visit, you would show up poorly. That's the level of empathy. The CEO of a company knowing every salesperson's family as deeply as he did. But the inspiration and the empowerment was he realized that the way to growth was to build these brands, but we would have to build multiple businesses. And there are several of us in the room that actually came up with ideas or found ideas as we traveled and were empowered to run with them. And, Balraman built the biggest of them, the leather business. But I remember really well, I was sent on a trip to Cheesebro Pondss and met with Bill Schmidt, who was our R&D leader at the other end. And he took me out for dinner and we're eating a Mexican meal and says, the mushrooms in this are grown in a factory situation. Do you think you could do that in India? And I said, I have no idea. I thought mushrooms were farms. So no, let's get on a plane tomorrow morning. And we flew to Temple, Pennsylvania, Reading, Pennsylvania, drove to Temple, saw this mushroom farm. And about a year later, we were in mushroom production for one of the food units of Cheesebro Pondss. That's the level of inspiration, empowerment. We were all, and there's a colleague of mine who did the same with the thermometer business, glass and mercury thermometers, with leather, as I said, and maybe Balraman can talk about that. But the whole idea was we did exports to Russia and the Soviet Union. And the whole idea here was find the opportunities, grow those opportunities, and use those surplus funds to build the businesses. So there was a clear purpose in this, and that purpose was make India strong, as I said, for God, for country, and for the institution. So when you hear of that, and you've met these 600 CEOs and more, does that, as I said, belong to the pages of your book? Does that kind of resonate with what you've seen?
It definitely resonates. This idea of, I think one of you mentioned the point, yin and yang, or, we call it managing polarities in the book. What we saw in the leaders that we studied was this ability to, on the one hand, be humble and ask the tough questions, questions for which I don't have answers at this point. At the same time, be able to then set audacious goals, pursue opportunities that otherwise might feel very, very hard to pursue. So, or as you called it, being very empathetic and being demanding and setting expectations for people. So we saw in these leaders this incredible ability to manage polarities that we have called out. You mentioned Stefan Bancel of Moderna, as he was going through the pandemic, and they had the idea that they could produce the vaccine back in 2020, in the first quarter of 2020. On the one hand, Stefan set some very audacious goals. He set a goal of manufacturing 1 billion doses of the vaccine at a time when they had not made a single dose of any product. They were a small biotech. And at the same time, he set that goal, and yet he was there. The question he asked his head of manufacturing was, how can I support you to make 1 billion doses? So he was always willing to roll up his sleeves, bring the right expertise, do what it takes, be collaborative, and make it clear that we are in this together. It's not like I've set a goal for you and then I run away from the field. So a lot of these leaders, we saw an incredible ability to be there, be engaged, be problem solvers, be challengers, and yet be able to attract great people, empower them, allow them to make mistakes at some points, and unleash their full potential. So that's definitely one big theme as I'm hearing you talk about Mr. Narayanan and what we saw in many of the leaders that we studied as well, Atul.
That's terrific. The other one I picked up from your book a lot, and I'd like to hear from you, is about vulnerability. You want to just talk about that, and then I can come in with a rejoinder or example of what I witnessed in Mr. Narayanan's work.
Happy to. And there are two close cousins that we describe in the book, vulnerability and resilience. I feel like in today's day and age, resilience is so important, both at a personal level and then at an institutional level. But I'll start with vulnerability. I think the many stories of